Hello, welcome. I'm Tom Danvers from Waygate Technologies. Welcome to this webinar where we'll be taking you through the advanced two-way control using the MViQ Plus and Future Drive NG Plus turning tool. So yes, unlike all of the other webinars, you see me sat in front of an engine. This is an old Rolls-Royce Trent 500 that I'm sat next to. I thought it would be better to demonstrate this feature, doing it live on an engine rather than showing you lots of pre-recorded videos. But yes, to give you an overview, as like I would normally do, I'll take you through a series of slides before then switching to the borescope and giving you a live demonstration. So give you a summary of what's involved here. We released this new turning tool advanced two-way control feature earlier this year as part of the MViQ Plus version 4.1 release that came out in January. So it's unique to the MViQ Plus borescope and to the RH Aero Systems, which used to be called Rheinstahl, the RH Aero Systems Rheinstahl turning tool, of which the handset is here, you can see over my shoulder. So taking you through really what is a turning tool before showing you more or giving you more detail about the feature that we have developed or advanced and updated before moving over to a practical demonstration. So a quick overview really of what the turning tool is, or the electronic turning tool system comprises of these parts that you see on the left-hand side here. We have a motor, a power unit, and a handset. That's really the core parts, components of an electronic turning tool system. You can attach a switch, a hand switch or a foot switch if you wanted to sort of trigger and get next blades to appear. But those are optional sort of parts that can be attached to the system. Rheinstahl and Hydro formed this new business called RH Aero Systems earlier last year in 2024. And as part of the technology agreement that's between ourselves in Waygate Technologies and RH Aero Systems, we have this capability to have both devices communicate with each other. And without the borescope attached, this is the turning tool system. When it's coupled with what you see as an engine adapter up here on the right-hand side, these are specific parts that to specific engines and specific shafts. So I'm sat on a Trent 500, so I have a very specific Trent 500 HP adapter that's attached to the accessory gearbox, upon which after the adapter you have the motor, the power unit, and the handset control system, or the pendant, that's all wired up together. And without it connected to the borescope, you have sort of, should we say, the commands to enable you to carry out a borescope inspection. Rather than have an additional person crank the engine or rotate the shaft using a manual ratchet that would also usually require an engine adapter to make that interface between the ratchet and the engine. Some engines don't need that, but this one does. And the real reason for using these electronic turning tools is to provide consistency and reliability and comfort of doing an engine inspection. And what's new that came out last year, but we've updated it this year, is the connection between this Future Drive system from RH Aero Systems and the MViQ borescope that you see on my shoulder, the MViQ Plus from Waygate Technologies. So just to reiterate, you'll probably hear me say this several times, to expose this feature on your equipment, it's necessary to have the right software fitted to not just your turning tool, but also your borescope. And from a borescope point of view, it's version 4.1. And from a turning tool point of view, it's version 2.14, as you see on the right-hand side. So what is advanced two-way control? Well, I guess before I go into what it is, I kind of really want to explain why. There are a number of reasons why it's seen as a development and an enhancement in terms of carrying out borescope inspections whether you're on wing or off wing in perhaps an MRO facility. The main one, really, as I've kind of ranked them here on this slide, are human factors. What I mean by that are those aspects associated with making it comfortable for you, the engine inspector, to carry out the task. As I'll demonstrate here shortly, you're able to really communicate and interact and focus on one device, not two devices, as you see on my shoulder. When the borescope takes over, all the control is taken over by the borescope, and you can carry out your inspection, focus on one screen, and interact with buttons on that one device. Additional sort of features that we have using this communication, you'll be able to carry out useful things associated with making sure that they're not just the speed, the direction, but also you can make sure that you're capturing images if you wanted to in accordance with your inspection procedure. And also it can configure dwell time on your borescope as well. Inspection quality. When you're really using these electronic turning tools as well, coupled with this borescope, you're really going to be able to improve the consistency of your inspections. What I mean by that is the multiple inspections that you do between all of the stages, whether it be in the booster, compressor, or in the turbine stages, basically during rotational sort of aerofoil blade inspections. Using a turning tool coupled with your borescope, you'll get into a rhythm. You'll be able to focus really on the task at hand, which is making sure that you're looking and examining the condition of your blades in accordance with your inspection procedure. And certainly from a repeatability point of view, a lot of you will be working in teams in larger businesses where there's multiple inspectors, multiple engine inspection lines, whether it's on wing or off wing. And as you're performing your inspections in accordance with perhaps a standard, in accordance with your employer, using these turning tools provides you with that repeatability. And what I really mean about that in the case of the turning tool is making sure that your speed of rotation is appropriate to the stage that you're inspecting. Doing all of these things help you improve the probability of you finding defects. And that's what it's really all about, improving the quality of your inspection. In other words, making sure that the likelihood of you missing a defect is reduced or even eliminated, such that when you're using this feature, but also other features that we have on our MViQ Plus, the likelihood of you missing a defect is very, very low. Economics. So yes, when you're carrying out an inspection, normally it would be a two-person task, one turner and one inspector, or it could be two inspectors. One inspector is actually turning the rotor, and they might flip around every 1 or 2 hours to alleviate the inspector on the borescope. But basically, it would traditionally be a two-person task. If using an electronic turning tool, that would typically be a one-person task. That's very dependent on whether you've got the right adapters for the engines that you're inspecting. It's worth just mentioning I'm on this Trent 500. There are no adapters for the IP and the LP, the N1 and the N2 shaft. It's only for the N3. So if you're doing a full 3-shaft inspection, you would still need to employ the services of a second person to inspect those other 2 shafts. But as more and more adapters get brought to the marketplace, this topic will improve it. The business case will improve in terms of being able to do these inspections with one person alone. The alternative to using an electronic turning tool, well, what I meant was if you're using a manual way of inspecting an engine, if you're still on your own, you're able to interact with your borescope using Inspection Works Connects. So that's a good way of setting up your borescope and then still turning the rotor, whether you're turning the fan or in this case on an IP compressor, IP shaft, for example, and still do the borescope inspection if you're connected to a secondary screen, or a companion device, such as what I'm doing today is I'm connecting my boroscope to my iPad. And safety. This is a unique feature as well associated with connecting it to the MViQ Plus boroscope. So the boroscope commands a shutdown or a pause of rotation if it detects movement or articulation of the probe, or if the user perhaps goes into a different menu. Basically, when the live screen no longer becomes visible, then it will command a pause on rotation of the turning tool. Reason being, the last thing you want to do is move your probe into the path of the blades that are rotating. That will certainly damage your boroscope and potentially damage your engine. Well, entrap your boroscope within the engine that could cause the engine being taken off wing if it can't be retrieved safely. So moving into actually what is advanced two-way turning tool control. So as you've heard from me, this is communication both ways, two-way control. So in other words, a signal is sent from your turning tool to the boroscope and vice versa from your boroscope to your turning tool. This really does allow you to perform hands-free inspection. And when I mean inspection, it also means your hands-free rotation and indeed capture. And when you're using other features on your boroscope, such as blade counter or assisted defect recognition, you've got these other features working in unison with this turning tool element, such that you can sit here as I am today and just watch the blades pass by, and I can be scanning the scene for defects, I could be counting the blades, and I can indeed be automatically capturing the images as well. There's two caveats to that statement I just made. As you can see on this slide, the two movement controls that we cannot perform on the boroscope when connected to the future drive system, backlash setup and set view position command. So backlash setup is a very important stage of setting up your turning tool such that the free movement of the motor as it's moving kind of clockwise or counterclockwise within the accessory gearbox when it's attached, there's that free movement, and the turning tool needs to be essentially calibrated such that it understands how much free movement there is in the engine that you've attached the motor to, such that when you ask for it to stop and turn the other way, it knows that before moving the blades in the other direction, there's a set degree of motor rotation required before the blades spin back in the other direction. So backlash setup is very important, especially if you're in the business of doing an engine inspection in one direction and potentially going back in the other direction and wanting the blade counts to be correct. If you're not worried about blade counts, then really backlash doesn't matter so much. But if you're wanting the blade count to be correct on your boroscope, then or on your turning tool, then it's necessary to set up backlash correctly. And the second part is set view position commands. That's another way of basically saying how to zero or create, tell the system that you're now at blade number 1. That's necessary such that when you start your inspection, you want to be in a good position on whichever blade you so choose to start your inspection and call that blade number 1. And that's a command that you have to do on the handset. We can't do that on the MViQ Plus boroscope. The things that you can do on your boroscope are also listed here. So we've got I'll talk more about these modes. We've got 3 modes: auto, flag, and manual modes. Those are important modes that you'll see on our user interface panel when you connect the boroscope to the turning tool. I'll take you through that shortly. You're able to set the speed, and you're able to jog. Jog is a manual sort of movement forwards or backwards or clockwise or anti-clockwise. And we have a go-to blade function as well. So you can press a button, type in 35, for example, and it will rotate one way or the other way. It will rotate the the quickest way, so it could be backwards or forwards from where you are. So if you're at blade 39 and you say you want to go to 35, it won't count up. It will count back to 35 and go back 4 blades, essentially, for example. And I'll take you through that shortly. So a little bit more detail about these modes. So you'll see these buttons on the boroscope when we move to our practical demo. So auto mode, that should we say the most common mode. And what I'm talking about is this button here that says mode and then the letter A. In this case, I've drawn a red circle to highlight the button that I'm talking about. So auto mode is selected to enable you to perform a general inspection. You can also use this mode such that at the arrival of every blade, you can command the turning tool to pause for a period of time before moving to the next blade. And if you do that, it gives you enough time to scan the scene. Maybe, there's enough time to press the flag button. We'll talk about flag in a bit. But on the right-hand button, you have a button here called flag, and that will illuminate red if you were to press it. And the reason why you would flag, for instance, is if you found a defect or something that you want to go back to. But you basically, with auto mode, you do essentially at least one full revolution whilst inspecting the rotor and flagging as you go. And when I say at least one rotation, you might want to do a number of rotations in order to capture all of your the surfaces of your blades that you're inspecting. So you see on the top of this screen, you see a blade number, and that will rotate counterclockwise or clockwise depending on the rotation you go. And then there's a revolution panel that you see here. So this is a screenshot of me setting up an inspection where 4 revolutions are required to do an inspection, such that 4 separate views of the boroscope are needed to capture from root to tip of a given stage of blades. And so when in auto mode, you would do 1 full revolution and it would pause and invite you to move your boroscope to position 2. And then you press the play button or resume your rotation and you carry on to revolution 2 and so forth until the end of revolution 4 in this case. And then as you're going through that inspection, you will be flagging as you go. And then you've got these other buttons. Some of these buttons are common across all of the different modes, but the other buttons that are unique to auto mode is forwards and backwards here, previous blade and next blade. Those buttons change as we flick between the different modes. The next mode is flag. So if you tap on the auto button, it moves to this next mode called flag mode. So you can see those 2 buttons have switched to next flag and previous flag. So as you perform your inspection into the auto mode and you have been flagging as you go through the inspection, the turning tool essentially remembers which blades you have been flagging. And it stores that in the memory such that when you come to this mode and you're in the flag mode, you're invited, or you can basically go back to each and every blade that you had previously flagged. So it's remembered in the memory of the turning tool and exposed to you on here on the boroscope. So yeah, the most useful button really on this panel here is to go to blade function. So when you go to a blade, rather than typing in any number, it remembers the list of blades that were flagged. And when we get to the practical demonstration, I'll show you a list of blades that were flagged on this stage because I found a rotor that contains defects. So I flagged a number of blades whilst I was doing the inspection. So you'll see that live shortly. And the third mode is manual mode. So you can see the buttons again have changed, so we can jog forwards or jog backwards. You've still got the ability to flag blades, so you could do an inspection under manual mode and still perform the flag function as you heard me talk about earlier. Or really, it's better to be using the auto mode because the auto mode has the time dwell feature where you could pause the blade for I tend to like pausing it 2, 3, 4 seconds before then moving to the next blade. It just gives you time to view the scene and press the flag button if you need to before it goes to the next blade. Whereas if you pressed play in manual mode, it would continuously rotate without any pausing whatsoever, which again is fine, provided you're going at a good, nice, steady speed. Then you can do that in this mode. But really the most, should we say, useful buttons here in manual mode is this fine-tuning of jogging forwards and backwards. So as you press these two buttons, or whilst it's actually rotating, you'll see this icon rotate, these fan blades that you see, these red fan blades, which brings me to this next page, these other commands. So rotation direction, that's this arrow with the fan blades. So as you begin rotation and a command for turning the rotor is sent to the boroscope, sent to the turning tool, then you'll see these blades rotate either clockwise or anti-clockwise. If you tapped on that button, the command to rotate the motor in the other direction is immediately given, and the spinning of those blades go in the other direction. So yeah, the next button here is the capture switch. I haven't really talked about this yet, but you heard me mention earlier about automated image capture. So when the turning tool sends a signal to the boroscope to say this blade has arrived, let's say blade 2 has arrived, that signal is detected by the boroscope, and what it would do is pause for a number of seconds if an incremental dwell has been set up in the boroscope, and it could be an and. If this button was toggled to on, it's currently in the off position. If it was toggled to on, then an image would be captured at that blade. And the command to rotate to the next blade would not be sent to the turning tool until that image has been saved. So it's captured and saved. And for instance, the dwell time has elapsed. So it's gone down from 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second to 0. And then the signal back to the turning tool to bring the next blade is sent. So that's the capture switch. You can toggle that on and off regardless of which mode you're in. And then the third button that you see here is the settings. That's like a gear icon that takes you to the settings page. So yes, there's lots of settings in our MViQ Plus boroscope, and there is a dedicated settings page for turning tools. And then rather than going into menu, settings, and then turning tool, you can just press that gear icon and it will take you into the turning tool settings. So it's kind of a shortcut directly into that settings page. So that's explaining everything at a high level of how the boroscope communicates and interacts with the turning tool. So I'm going to switch away from my slide deck and move towards my boroscope signal. So just bear with me. I shall just click that button, go to full screen. So here you see the boroscope signal. I've intentionally, so let me go back to live screen. So we're in live now, and in my hand you see a USB cable. So it's currently disconnected from my boroscope. So I connect it on. And within a second or two, you'll see a panel arrive on the screen, start turning tool. So unlike the previous version of turning tool communication, a great big keyboard arrives and you're invited to type in your engine serial number. To begin with, it might be necessary to, well, the user might not want that straight away. So you can still use your boroscope. Let's say you're in the combustion chamber or something like that. You don't want the panel, so you can have it at this position, for instance. But if you press start panel, that keyboard appears. If you press cancel, it goes back to where it was. But if you press done, it's going to you can see that I've typed in those numbers associated with the serial number of the engine inspected. So if I press done, you can see the serial number appear on the top of the screen. If I pressed skip, then the serial number would not appear and you'd only get 3 lines of text appearing on your screen. So here we're attached to the Trent 500 HP breather port being another way of saying it's attached to the accessory gearbox, essentially. You heard me say it earlier, pretty sure I said it, but maybe I didn't. But the engine type and the stage number are things that you cannot do on the borescope. So I have selected that I am on the Trent 500 on the borescope, on the turning tool, and I also selected that I'm on HB compressor stage 3. And that's done on the handset. And you heard me say earlier about backlash as well. So I've set up backlash. I've done those things in the interest of time. And it's remembered all of those things because it's all set up. It'll always be in the memory of the turning tool, regardless of whether it was attached to the borescope through the USB lead or not. And you can see on the bottom of the screen this minimized panel. So if I tap it, it will maximize to those buttons that you saw me show you earlier. So if I just tap it again, it will go back to the minimized. So we recognize there's lots of buttons and it consumes lots of space. So during your inspection, obviously you need to focus on the inspection at hand. That's why we like to, for instance, minimize those buttons here so you can maximize your real estate on your screen and on your image. So, but in order to start your inspection, in order to make it start and pause, stop your inspection and rotation, but also the flagging button, you'll see illuminates when it's maximized. So if I go into my settings, goes to you can see I'm set to number of revolutions is 2, and my delay before rotation is set to 2 seconds. That can range from 0 to 99 seconds, not that you would want to sit there for 99 seconds. And this is where I select my speed, which is currently set to 0.25 RPM. So I'm just going to leave those as they are. And you can see if I go to auto mode, so I just press the mode button, so I go from flag to manual back to auto. And if I press go, you'll see this disclaimer that's basically saying, make sure that you pay attention to the fact that your borescope should not be in the position of the rotating path of the blades. And I pressed OK to that, and it sends the signal to the turning tool to rotate. So it's in auto mode. It's basically spinning to every blade and dwelling, in this case, 2 seconds before going to the next blade. So if I just minimize that panel, you'll see rotation continues. You can see the blade count growing in terms of I'm at blade 6. You can see in the panel below, and you can see the blade number in the text above. You can see that I'm on revolution number 1. So in my settings, I said there was going to be 2 revolutions. In this case, one for the tip of the blades and another one for the root. And there's my speed setting. So that's what you can see in the minimized state. So let me carry on rotating. Let me actually just pause it and just demonstrate to you. So as soon as you pause, actually, if I carry on playing it, rotating it, and I'll just show you, if I actually go to the joystick and just flick the joystick, if you saw my thumb, I just moved the joystick very momentarily. It sends a signal to our servo motors in the probe, and that, based on what you heard me say earlier about the safety element, that commands a pause of the borescope. So it's kind of a good way of just quickly, with a flick of your thumb on the joystick, just quickly pause the rotation. You can pause it by doing other things as well, like pressing another button, pressing freeze frame. going into the menu setting, doing all these things pauses it, but it takes you away from the live screen. So a nice way I do it is to just flick the joystick. So I'm still in the live state, but it pauses it. What I was going to do is go to the blade function. And if I just type in number 1, you can see the icon now rotate in the other direction. And what's actually happening is the motor is turning, but it's taking up the backlash. And there you see it, it's now moving back the other way. So in that panel that says blade number, you can see the orange mark is moving from what it was, blade 12. It's now going back anti-clockwise to blade number 1. I'll just let that happen. And whilst I'm in this exposed mode, you'll see it, the flag button illuminate, because before this webinar started, I kind of went through this rotor and found any defects that were present. And I found, if I actually go to manual mode and just jog it back a little bit more, you'll see blade 1. And it's flagged. It's gone back to blade 75. Let me just go forward. As soon as it flicks to blade 1, you'll see the red flag button has appeared. So let me just toggle it for you. So it was flagged because basically it has remembered, the turning tool has remembered in its memory that I've flagged. In this case, there were 4 blades that I flagged. Blade 1 is one of them, because you can see the missing material on the trailing edge of the tip of this blade. So if I go to my flag mode, which is this mode, and then I press go to blade, it remembers, it's showing you, actually, it's showing you the 4 blades that I had flagged. So if I continue to go back, there are 75 blades in this rotor set, and that's loaded into the software of the turning tool. So again, it's taken up the backlash. It tells you what it's doing on the top of the screen. So it's moving back to blade 66, because I'm in flag mode and I want to review all of those blades that I've just spent time inspecting for the first time in auto mode. Just going to take a few more just to get back to 66. Here we go. A little bit more. Let's go back into manual mode, jog back a little bit more. If I minimize the panel, you can see another piece of missing material. And you can see it's flagged at the top of the screen. So so I've taken you through briefly the auto mode and the flag mode, and you actually saw me adjust the blade ever so slightly, and that's when I went into manual mode and jogged it either forwards or backwards. So when sort of a little trick is to sort of watch the icon spin ever so slightly, release your finger from the screen, and then you can see the blade obviously jog ever so slightly in movement. So let me start rotation again. So in this case, let's go to manual mode. So as I press play to manual mode, it won't stop every blade and count 2 seconds, because that was a feature of auto mode. So in manual mode, it's going to take up the backlash and it will do smooth rotation. It won't pause. It'll just do smooth rotation, and it'll go from 66 and climb all the way up to 75 and then reset back to 1, since that's how many blades there are in this stage. So you heard me earlier say if you wanted to and you didn't want to dwell at any blade, you could go into manual mode and do an inspection in this mode and still use the flag key or the flag feature, such that you can go back to those blades once you've done the general inspection. So here you go. It's passing through 1, and you could see the defect as it passed through, just behind the panel. So as I'm rotating, what I'll do is just press the icon, and it's now going to take up the backlash and spin the other way. I didn't have to pause it. I just touched the icon for rotation. And because there's quite a bit of backlash on this engine gearbox, it takes a few seconds for that to happen. So you can press that icon, that rotation icon at any time if you wanted to, and just go back and forwards at your leisure. Right, I'll just pause it again. So you'll note I've been doing this demonstration with the capture button turned off. So actually, I need to be in auto mode, and then I can turn on capture. So capture, just as a reminder, that is triggered by the turning tool sending a signal to the borescope to say this blade has arrived. And then once the borescope receives that signal, it will instigate a capture. And I'll quickly show you my file. So earlier today, just before this webinar started, I did a general inspection of this stage, and you heard me say there were 2 revolutions. So I will show you this, but I thought I'd show you the saved data that's in my file, in my folder. So you can see it's saving. So this is not using MDI yet. I haven't talked about that, but if you're not using MDI, it will save all of your images in accordance with the stage and the blade number and the revolution number. So if I go back to, oh, I don't need to do that. Let's go back to, let's just illuminate this file here. So this is blade number 2, revolution number 1. And because there's a second revolution, then you see revolution 002. So for each blade, you see 2 files because there are 2 revolutions. So if I actually just select that, you can see all of these images. So that's blade 3 tip, blade 3 root, blade 4 tip, blade 4 root. And those are automatically saved by the borescope. In this case, they were simple JPEG images. If I went into settings and changed my image save type to 3D PM, then all of those images would be 3D PM images. And if you don't have a 3D PM image and you perhaps have a stereotip fitted, then you could save your image in accordance with your stereotip. So I'll just switch it back to normal because it just takes less than a second for a normal image to be captured. So I'm now in auto mode and start my inspection. You see the green banner, that's a JPEG saved. And yeah, it's saving images as we go through those blades. I'm just going to stop it because I don't like saving extra images. Stop, turn off that toggle. So that's the toggle switch for saving. I've taken you through the different modes, the flagging and the direction. Let's just show you a little bit more in the settings menu. So if you wanted to change your serial number, you can do at the top of the screen up here. You saw me talk through the different save type. This is revolution. So if I'm in revolution or indefinite, if I'm in indefinite mode, basically turning just carries on forever until you stop it. So if you walk away, have a break, come back, it will still be rotating because it's set to indefinite mode. If you set it to revolution mode, that's where you see this extra option appear here, number of revolutions. And that's where you can say, right, actually, I've moved from this stage. I've now moved to another stage that's, let's say, it's a smaller, as you move rearwards in your compressor, the blades tend to get smaller, obviously. So let's just say there's 1 revolution. And then when you go back to my screen, you'll see, if I show it on my mouse, you'll see revolution, it says 1. So if I go back to settings and let's just change that to 5, you'll see the number of segments increases to 5. And as you pass through one revolution into another, these panels illuminate, fill up with white until you get to the end, giving you an understanding of how far through your inspection you are for that given stage. So that's where you type in the number of revolutions. Here, delay before rotation. So you heard me say before, that can be from 1 to 99 seconds. That's your rotational speed. And then we've got these other features associated with annotation, file name, and folder creation. They're all set to on. If, however, I loaded up an MDI inspection, if you're doing your inspection in accordance with menu-directed inspection, I'll just show you quickly what happens there. So if I resume an inspection that I carried out earlier, I think it was this one here. No one. Where is it? Oh, here it is. That's why. So I'm going to resume an MDI inspection. So this happens to be a template that I created for the Trent 500. So if I go into HP compressor, stage 3, rotor blade, leading edge, you can see the turning tool text has deactivated and has been replaced by the MDI generated text on the top left-hand side of this screen. So that's what happens. So when you're using the turning tool feature with MDI, you get this. And if you go into analytics and turn on blade counter, what blade am I on? I'm on blade 70. Oh, no, I didn't need to do that. Let's go back. There's 75 blades in total. And I'm on blade 70. Oops, 70. So here, so let's just let's go in that direction because I like going up rather than back. Just going to take up the backlash. So what I'm doing here is if you're using MDI, you can obviously see the blade count number has disappeared from the top of the screen, but you still see it at the bottom. So if you're using, I'm just going to pause it and make sure it's correct. So I set up blade counter to be the correct number. So you can see at the bottom it says blade 72 on my gauge panel, and on my blade counter that you have on the boroscope, let's just put it in the middle so it's easier to see. And start rotation. So blade counter works perfectly fine with the turning tool and with MDI. And if I was then to turn on my assisted defect recognition analytics, so I go into analytics, I'm going to turn on, in this case, gas power assist. And so you can see on the top right hand side, gas power assist is turned on. So I've turned on various things now. But I wanted to show you, these are the kind of tools that you would have, or you can have turned on. So you can see that missing material is illuminated as a defect using my ADR. And I've got blade counter. So if I'm on a stage of blades where there's multiple blades that you can see, sometimes it's difficult to understand which blade number you're actually being shown by the turning tool. If you have the turning tool and the blade counter turned on from the MViQ, then you see the blade number track across the actual blade as you see here. So all those things work in unison. Okay. So that's a brief demo of turning tools working. So I'll let that carry on chugging away in the background. Just a few more minutes now associated with how to get the feature. So there are 3 models of MViQ Plus. There's Enhance, Pro. Those are the mid-tier and the advanced tier, or the high-end tier, Enhance and Pro models. So when you update your MViQ Plus to version 4.1, which came out earlier this year, you will get this feature on your boroscope. So it moves from the basic two-way that we had last year to the advanced two-way that you see me demonstrating here. If you have an MViQ Plus that is the start model, then the turning tool feature is available, but only really through a trial. You'll get an ability to use this through a trial. And if the trial on your system has expired, you will be able to get it re-energized if you contact your sales rep for that request. And if you're happy with it and you want to continue using it, then it's available as a purchase and you will get it forever, for perpetuity on your start device. Just a few comments really in the green box that you see here. So how do you update your boroscope? So these are connected devices. They are digitally connected devices. So there's various ways of updating your boroscope. Similar to your smartphone or to your computer, you can do it. The most convenient way is over the air, or OTA. You do that by, let me demonstrate on here. Going into settings, connectivity, and connecting your device to a Wi-Fi network. Once you've done that, the device will automatically detect whether an update is available or not. It just does that automatically. And if it's available, then it will tell you, and then you just press the button and it will start automatically download the update. And then it will tell you, okay, we're now ready to install, and you'll be able to install it. Installing a software update on your boroscope means that it has to shut down and reboot 2 or 3 times. So it is a disruptive process. So it's better to make sure that's done whilst you're not on the engine doing an inspection, preferably obviously back in your office or something. The alternative to update your device is through USB. So you can go into inspectionworks.com, download the update onto a USB thumb drive. As you can see, my fingers pointing to one. I've got a thumb drive attached to my boroscope. And then you can insert that into your boroscope and it will detect the update from your USB thumb drive, and you can update that way. If you don't have an MViQ Plus, then this feature won't work on the older models if you have a grey or a flame system. So just a few words associated with the fact that you can trade in. We have quite an attractive sort of commercial package associated with upgrading, trading in your device, whether it's a grey or a flame device. One of the big benefits of obviously doing that are really all listed down on the right-hand side of this chart. And I'm kind of stressing the fact that all of the future updates and innovative kind of developments that we expose to you on your device continue to happen on the MViQ Plus only. So all of the updates that we did on the grey back in the day and done on the flame, those are now discontinued. So we don't support updates in terms of customer-facing features on those older devices. So just bringing it to a close now, I've taken you through the new feature associated with turning tool control. Just as a reminder, we have to make sure that your system, your MViQ Plus system, is upgraded to version 4.1. And you will need to make sure that you're using the RH Aerosystems RC3000 next generation plus system, that's been upgraded also to the two-way communications package. I haven't mentioned it until now, but there's basically a snapshot of this specification sheet that I created a few months ago. Basically all of the features associated with this advanced two-way communication protocol is laid out in that sheet, as well as all of the 2 historical versions of communication as well. So that's available on our website as well. Actually, I'll attach it to the LinkedIn post after this webinar, so you can see it on your phone as well. And the other comment I just made here is using turning tool on its own is a very powerful feature. I can't stress enough the benefit associated with just sitting here hands-free in a comfortable ergonomic space and environment, rather than leaning over uncomfortable, and your focus on the screen is not as it should be in terms of detecting defects. So if you are in this space where you're connected to an electronic turning tool, especially with the boroscope, you're in this very comfortable space where the likelihood of you doing a more higher performing inspection will be increased. If you were also doing it with MDI and blade counter and assisted defect recognition, then that only just improves yet more, as you saw me demonstrate earlier. So as is customary at the end of my events, I kind of like to pause here and basically invite any questions that you guys might have for me before signing off. So I'll wait a few seconds before, if there are no questions, then we'll call it a day. But thank you for joining me. Hope you found it useful. You'll be able to see this again on the YouTube channel, so it'll be available on there in a few minutes later today, I'm sure. Okay, nothing's popping through on the chat, so thank you for joining. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.